Good evening. Welcome to the Oconee County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is Tuesday, March the 25th. After a moment of silence, we're going to ask Commissioner Harden to lead us in the pledge. If you would, please stand. The first item of business will be to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any statements or remarks from citizens? This is for anything not on tonight's agenda. Any statements or remarks from commissioners? Gonna skip down for just a minute while we get the PowerPoint loaded up for Nationals presentation. So we're going to move on to discuss the award of the ISO fire hydrant flow testing and inspection program. Welcome.
All right, good evening, commissioners. Good to see you tonight. I won't take up too much of your time. So we issued an RFP a few weeks, well, I guess about a couple months back. It was 25-01-009. It was to evaluate our hydrants, do maintenance on them, 100% of them every year, flow, 20%, paint, GPS coordinates, and just general maintenance on them. The evaluation committee came to a pretty good determination as far as qualifications and pricing, combination of both. And Water Resources recommends that you award this contract to Elves. They were the most qualified and best out of the four that we had when you consider pricing and qualifications and experience. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Well, how many hydrants do we have?
About 2,700.
Thank you.
We're gonna break them up into 5 years. We're gonna do maintenance on 100% of them. We're gonna flow 20% of them every year. So I guess it'd be 2,700 divided by 5. Questions?
Any other questions? Thank you, Adam. You're all right for consent agenda? Do we have any public comment? Thank you. Our next item is discuss the design services contract for Dawson Park. Justin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. If you recall, we contracted with LOS to do park design engineering for Dawson Park. All submittals that we received priced the job differently. LOS took us through schematic concept design, where you had the 3 options that were presented at the strategic planning retreat. One option was presented moving forward. Part of their pricing scheme was based on a $15 million estimated construction budget. There was a percentage of that. Some of our expectations would be for more engineering to go into it. And so some discussion ensued. So based on not being able to get everything we originally wanted out of it, we went to our second firm, which would be Carter Engineering. And so they have the proposal, which includes all the engineering and design of the park, with the exception of the 2 gymnasiums and the field services building, would be $759,900. We did go to Lowe's with a full explanation of the scope. Their number came back at $919,321. Our plan, therefore, tonight would be to terminate at Lowe's with this point, then move forward with Carter Engineering for the design services, and then direct sourcing with the criteria to an architectural engineering firm for design of the 2 gymnasiums and the field services building as separate contracts that we bring back before you. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
As far as the time schedule, we'd expect to have the bids for Dawson Park work by second quarter this year, or excuse me, next year.
Yes.
And then we'll should bring these contracts for the architectural services back to you for the end of the second quarter of this year. Moving pretty quick on those. Do we have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got one. I appreciate, movement. This is I think this will be the biggest project the county's ever done. At least on, cost wise. And because of the money, is there any way we can start as sitting down and looking at how we can finance, where the financing will be? We don't have to have exact dollars, but just brainstorming how we get this done. Now, I'll speak for myself. I want as much done as possible first time out, because if we piecemeal it, we're gonna follow the same path that we've always done. We piecemeal it. We're not through with OVP yet. So I'd like to start looking at everybody have their say about what they think financing, how we accomplish this. Because I think if we don't, I think we're making a big mistake. That's my feeling. So I don't think we have to have the exact dollar amount. We got estimates. But I think it'd be wise to start looking at how we're gonna fund it. So everybody's got at least an idea, this is how we can accomplish it.
I think we already got a good start on that down the road when through our strategic planning meeting where we talked about the current SPOS and how the reallocation of that's gonna have a lot to do with it. And then we'll start moving it. So I think, we should be getting close to budget wrap up here in April as usual. And then we can start diving into next SPOS and what that may have available for it, as well as some other options.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions? You all right for consent agenda? Do we have any public comment? Next item is discuss the RFP for audit services. We currently are reviewing the proposals and we'll have a recommendation from the audit committee for you at next week's meeting. So it's kind of a. Now we'll move back up to the National EMS Annual Report presentation. John?
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the County Commission. We thank you for your time this evening to go over the annual report. Little back history, for those that don't know, on the next slide is the history of National EMS. Basically, we were started by Pat and Mary Atkins back in 1979. Continued and started our first 911 service in 1986 with Rockdale County. Shortly after that, becoming the provider for Morgan County in 2009, rather. Sorry, I want to go back to the 90s. 2009, we became Oconee County's ambulance provider, and we've been here ever since, and we're happy to do that. 2018, Priority Ambulance came along and took over the financial obligations and bought National EMS. And today in 2025, we are a local employer for over 200 EMTs and paramedics and respond to over 51,000 calls per year and continue to provide 911 service for 4 counties. So my name is John Banzel. I am the Vice President of Operations for National. I've been here for about a year now. Been with Priority for a couple of years. Tracy LaFlamme, to my left, is our Operations Manager for Athens, Clark, Oconee. Haley Brown is our Operations Manager for Rockdale. Caleb Willis is our Communication Manager. Kyle Atkins is our Training Administrator. Ricky Delmar is our CQI Manager. And Joy Peppers is our DQA manager. For the year 2024, Oconee County received 4,111 calls for service. Out of those, 2,812 were transports. So we have about roughly about a 60% transport to 40% dry run rate, which is in line with the national average. Our average response time for priority ones in 2024 came down significantly over the past years, and a lot of that is due to the leadership of Tracy LaFlemme, came down to 9 minutes and 6 seconds. Average of all our response times over the past year, this includes priority 1 and priority 2 calls, of 13 minutes and 45 seconds. This is just an overview of how many times that calls. So based upon our memorandum of agreement with the county and the zone provider, which is currently St. Mary's and Athens Piedmont, we have respond to the number of calls. We report out what comes over 12 minutes and 59 seconds. That's for priority 1 calls only. Priority 1 calls are those that are generally considered true emergencies, such as chest pain, trouble breathing, and traumatic incidents, as well as strokes. Other calls would fall into the priority 2 category, such as mechanical falls. And this is how they get called into the system. So it's however we actually get them dispatched. So mechanical falls, abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, et cetera. Some motor vehicle accidents, if it's, sheriff's deputy on scene requesting for an evaluation, that can come in as a priority 2 versus person trapped in a vehicle is priority 1. Go to the next slide. So our goal is to respond within 12 minutes and 59 seconds of all priority 1 requests. And we want to do that 90% of the time. This year, for the first time in a long time, we actually hit 93.3%. So we actually made it within the MOU. Just a basic bar graph of the different runs and how long it takes. Fortunately, this year we only had 1 call that actually took us a total of 45 minutes to get to on the priority 1 side. So our staffing here is in line with the memorandum of agreement. Oconee County is guaranteed 2 ambulances a day, and those are 24/7, and those are staffed at the paramedic level. Paramedic level is the highest out of hospital care that can be provided. These paramedics can come to your side and do everything from manual defibrillation to put a breathing tube in your throat to give medication to help you stop vomiting and everything in between. We currently staff 401, which is a combination of a paramedic and an advanced level EMT. An advanced level EMT can give medications that are more simpler than what a paramedic can give. And they can also do IVs and more minor procedures, but still greater than that of an EMT. So an advanced level EMT will have about 400 hours of training beyond a basic EMT. A paramedic has an associate's level of education. Even though they might not have an associate's degree, it's that level of education. In 2024, I am proud to report to this board and the commission, we were contract compliant every single day. So that means in our memorandum of agreement, we will staff both ambulances with paramedics, and we were able to do that every single day, which we have not been able to necessarily do in the past. Looking at our disaster plan, we have not changed anything since 2024. We were recently reviewed with all our plans for our reaccreditation process, which happened in January, and the independent reviewers found 0 fault. We were actually reaccredited as Georgia's first and continuously longest commission on ambulance accreditation, accredited ambulance. Sounds a little weird, but medical protocol changes. We did do a big revamp. Didn't really change a lot. However, we did add 12 lead EKG transmission for advanced EMTs and EMTs. So if both ambulances are unavailable and we send you an ambulance from our Athens market that has an advanced EMT and an EMT in it, if you call for chest pain, we can actually take your EKG and transmit that to the hospital where a physician can read that EKG to determine if you're having a heart attack or not. Our paramedics can do that without transmitting it. It just allows these providers to come and do it to provide better care at the patient's side. This is something, like I said, that we're doing new, and it's definitely helped catch a few more, especially some of the lower level calls that may not necessarily be chest pain, but in my 23 years as being a paramedic, there's definitely been times that we've caught something just because, you know, we did do it. We created a new medication bag for advanced EMTs. This is to reduce medication errors, which also provides better care to our patients. We've instituted a medication cross-check. So like airlines, we use checklists before giving medication. We've also initiated a care navigator protocol, which allows for our providers to talk to somebody before the patient signs a refusal. So if I come out and you're called me for shortness of breath and you don't want to go to the hospital, and I've tried till I was blue in the face, no pun intended, to get you to go to the hospital, and at that point in time, you still want to refuse, you would talk to our care navigator, that just making sure that we are doing everything on our end to convince you to go to the hospital. We've also started offering telehealth, which is a service that we provide in Georgia. If you're a Georgia Medicaid recipient, it is free of charge for that person to have it, and a mid-level practitioner would come on. So if a resident was to call us for flu-like symptoms, and the mid-level, they didn't really want to go to the hospital, the mid-level could get on the computer screen with them, talk to them, and determine if they needed a prescription right there or then. If they needed to really go to the hospital, and they would try to convince that patient. And it's working out really well. It was one of the things that came out of COVID, was the amount of people that were being transported to the hospital. We're trying to, the goal ultimately is to reduce the number of non-emergencies that are going to the hospital. As somebody personally that's had a lot of, not me, family members that have had hospital visits lately, I can tell you that the emergency room, unless you really got to be there, is not a fun place to visit. National EMS, a little bit about our financial stability. Well, we are a privately held company, part of the Priority Ambulance family. So I'm not allowed to get into specifics because we are privately held. I can tell you that we are financially sound, that puts no risk to the county for your ambulance service disappearing overnight. 911 gets called, we're going to come. We are actually in growth mode across the nation as far as our parent company. We're also branching out, as I said, into telehealth, telehealth informatics, as well as new ambulance services. As a matter of fact, our parent company this year acquired a new ambulance company in Mississippi to expand our services. And we go to the next page. So our transport vehicles, and this is where we're going to talk about some of the good things, right? Oconee County is currently guaranteed 2 paramedic level ambulances, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We do provide additional level paramedic ambulances that are placed in service on a 24-hour basis that is shared with Athens Clarke. This is another truck that is on the line that is for both responses. Well, it's not dedicated necessarily to the county of Oconee. It is a shared resource, and it does do quite a bit backfilling in here, and it reduces the response times, especially on those priority 1 calls. Your neighbor, Athens Clarke, also has 13 ambulances that are available to them, and that does not include our interfacility trucks, which can be used for coverage if the 911 situation, 911 coverage area gets saturated. So if 3 of us were to have chest pain right now, 3 of us would get an ambulance within relatively short time. All 3 of us would get separate ambulances. That's the advantage of having us, and with, you know, with having such a robust system next door and using that intertwined mutual aid. Number of vehicles that are over 8 years old. So as we continue to recover from COVID, I know that everybody's really sick of this excuse, me included. We are continuing to rebuild our fleet. One of the things that have come out of COVID was we thought everything was going to bounce back. So after all the manufacturing stopped, we thought things were going to bounce back. Well, if I could go back in time, I would have been the guy in the corner saying, I don't think so, because things haven't. Now, Priority has started its own ambulance manufacturing division. We have our own, we're building our own ambulances out in Mississippi. As a matter of fact, one of the former owners of National, Robbie Atkins, is the head of that division. He's pumping out ambulances as fast as we can get. We did receive 3 new ambulances in 2024, and I have 3 ambulances ready to be delivered this week, which one of them is coming into this market to replace an older vehicle. So, and we're on track to receive a total of 5 more. I'm currently in negotiations with another county to buy their ambulances, and we have 2 more that are on order after that, which are now being able to refresh the fleet because those items are actually now able to come in. Currently, we don't have any ambulances that are over 8 years old that are in service to this county. And one of the 2 frontline ambulances that do respond on a regular basis does have over 200,000 miles on it, but it does have a new engine in it. I wish our people. So, our replacement in our equipment is very robust. This year, we're going to be adding 3 Lucas CPR devices to our fleet. Those are the automatic CPR devices. They are wonderful. They have, without a doubt, definitely brought more people back to life and meaningful life afterwards. We continue to order new stretchers. We have a dynamic plan to continue to roll out with new stretchers. All new ambulances that come into our fleet now have new stretchers. We no longer use old stretchers as was the case in the past. This year, we made a big switch. We switched back to the manufacturer servicing our equipment. So Zoll services our Zoll monitors. Strikers services our Striker stretchers. There is no outside third-party company. It was one of the changes we made last year that have been more than well received, especially by our providers. New stair chairs have been ordered from Stryker. These are to get people in and out of the house a lot safer. And we've also developed for our end to hear our partners better when the radio communications across the basis. We have implemented a new radio over IP system. This has actually allowed us to hear not only this county better, even though our communication center is just across the street, but all our partners better. This year, Oconee County had 11 STEMI activations. So these were people that were having actual myocardial infarctions that could be determined by EKG. Not all myocardial infarctions or heart attacks can be determined by EKGs. Some of them are determined by labs later on, which are called NSTEMIs, but we had 11. This year, we had 29 strokes that were all activated, and they had 17 trauma activations. So as far as quality assurance goes, we are committed to quality assurance. National, we employ a full-time quality assurance manager who reviews all ALS reports. She works cooperatively with our medical director, who is Dr. Kurt Horst from Piedmont Medical Group. We continue to have our monthly QA meetings with our team members, and this goes over our metrics. And this includes all leadership as well as our medical director. So our medical director is very involved with our service. Our QA has been able to stop several bad outcomes before they've happened. So we review things. If we find that it's not good, we go back and we fix it before it can happen again. We truly believe in 2 things at National. Our first priority is the people, not just our employees, but the people that we're taking care of. These are real people with real problems that call us. The second is getting it right. We got to get it right. If 99.9% was good enough, 2 airliners would crash in the United States every day for the airline industry. So we're trying to strive for 100% all the time. Next slide. So our challenges for the next 12 months, obviously funding continues to always be a challenge. You know, whatever's going on with the federal government trickles down to the state governments, trickles down to our insurance companies. Our radio system, as we continue to grow, you know, it is one of those things that we use IP radio, even though the Georgia State Patrol uses the same system that we do. Until I'm fully sold on it, I see it as a challenge. And obviously, although we are well staffed now, thanks to Tracy LaFlemme, she's actually fully staffed right now, which for an ambulance service is almost unheard of right now. We're going to continue to recruit and retain our top level talent. So those that have been skating by the skin of their teeth, not saying that we have any, but they exist in every place of employment. Those in the back of the canoe, you know, will be replaced by top level people. So this is something that I want, and I believe in full transparency. And when I say that, not everybody is transparent when it comes to rates and money. So an ALS level 1 emergency, this is what we bill out. There is Nothing, I am not hiding behind anything. This is exactly what gets billed out. An ALS level 2 emergency gets billed out at that rate. An ALS level 2 emergency is something where it is more complex. So like a ventilator needs to be used, more than 4 medications, infusions running. These are generally like our critical care calls, but that actually happen on the street. Our BLS emergency rate is the same as our ALS emergency rate. We charge $47.82 per mile. And if you call us and we refuse care, we do bill $253. The reason for the rates being as high as you see, and I know there is sticker shock when you see them, believe it or not, even I look at them and I go, wow, when I started all those years ago, ambulance rates were in the hundreds of dollars instead of the thousands of dollars. What this does is this helps us pay for those that are uninsured, underinsured, or just don't pay their bills altogether. We are very robust when it comes to billing and forgiveness of billing. I always say that our billing department, which is in Indiana, unfortunately, they are disconnected from us, but I do have our revenue cycle manager in the building. So I am able to bounce a lot of things off of our revenue cycle manager, Joy. Best thing to do is if any of your constituents have a comment, question about the ambulance bill, please give us a call. We are willing to work with anybody and everything when it comes to creative discounts, creative payment plans. Everything comes to my office anyway. And the last thing I don't want is somebody to choose, am I going to pay this ambulance bill or if I'm going to feed my family tonight? We don't, I say, in an informal way, we don't play those games because we don't like to. I am a people first kind of person. We are a people first kind of first organization, and that's what we want. Just as a little, once again, transparency, and this is on the lower end. Right now, it costs about $150 per unit hour to have an ambulance standby. This includes my direct labor costs and the cost of the ambulance amortized out over 10 years. So when I take the cost of an ambulance, which is a little more than $1 million now to put together an ambulance, fully functional ambulance, I amortize that, I take that out 10 years. So I do spend about we as a company spend $150 per unit hour to have the ambulance by. For 2 ambulances, that comes out to $7,200 a day, and that's just for the readiness. That doesn't include if we actually roll wheels and go out and have to take care of a high priority patient with a lot of the supplies and such. So that comes out to $216,000 roughly per month. Our current subsidy, which is $16,666.66 from the county, which we are very grateful for because it helps defer that cost of readiness, comes out to $547.94 per day. So with that, this is why we have to bill. And this is how we recoup costs, because without it, I can't even keep the ambulance on the road for a handful of hours. That's my last slide, and I am more than happy to entertain any questions from the commission.
I've got 2. Since we share some vehicles pending for Clark County, are the bills, the billing the same? Both counties? If you pick up one of those A1 or A2, the cost in Clark County is the same?
Yes, sir. We don't differentiate billing from one county to the next. I will say that there is a caveat to that the bill that goes out is the same. However, what insurance companies or what Medicare, Medicaid may pay us is completely different. And since we are contracted with Medicare and Medicaid, so as an example, if we send Medicare the bill for $3,400, just a rough figure, and they send us back $1,100 out of that bill, we have to take the $1,100. That's paid in full, and we can't balance bill that to a Medicare or Medicaid recipient.
So you're saying it could be different in Clark County than it is in Oconee?
Only for a Medicare or Medicaid recipient. But if you, God forbid, fell and broke your hip right here, or you broke your hip over in Clark County, or even Rockdale County or Morgan County, the other counties we service, exact same bill. If you didn't have, if you don't have insurance, it's the exact same bill.
Let me ask you, I'm curious, between 2 counties, I won't get into the other, but I would be interested in that too, but how many pickups, percentage in Clark County and Oconee County would be Medicare, Medicaid taxes?
So I would have to get the actual data and I will get the actual numbers for the commission. But generally Medicare, Medicaid is around 55 to 60% of what we do.
Period.
Period. And yeah,
So let me ask you this, would pickups in Oconee County versus Clark County, would there be more insurance in Oconee County?
yes, you have a way better insurance payer mix than Clark County does.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So with that said, your revenue should be better in Oconee.
So when you're looking at it from an actual profits, like an APC, yes. Clark County on an APC basis pays better than Clark County. Clark County, even though it's a lower amount, has a volume that offsets the difference. So it would be, it's right now, Clark County is a lower payer per average of call than Oconee County. And that's because, and I hate to say assume, but without going into detail, that's because there is more Medicare, Medicaid over in Clark County, as well as bills that go unpaid than there are here in Oconee County.
So do you guys look at insurance prior to, or you just respond to the call?
We respond to every single call without question, and even the insurance information, as much as we try to gain that information at the hospital. So usually the hospital will give us a face sheet that gives us that information. There is times that we will not get that information because the patient is too critical. They don't have that. They're out of towner, and we will leave the hospital without it. And we will have to get that information later. But we will always respond, treat, transport, regardless of how they're going to pay in the back end. We're one of the very few services in the world that provide service first and then ask for reimbursement later.
Do y'all pretty much accept all insurances?
So we accept pretty much every insurance. I'd have to get an exact list from our billing department, but I can tell you the list is extensive. It's whether we're in network or out of network. Right now, the insurance companies, and you can see this with St. Mary's. St. Mary's just became out of network with one of their local larger providers. They're playing a game right now where they don't want to go in network. The reason for that is when you go in network, they have less to deny and more to pay. So example is if I contract with insurance company A and I say, you will pay $1,000 for chest pain, you will pay $1,000 for shortness of breath. They will pay those when I submit our claims along with our narratives and our run sheets. Now, when they're out of network, I submit those and they say, well, we may pay you $1,000, we may pay you, for those two calls. And then they can nickel and dime it down to, well, we're only going to give you 500 because you're not in network with us. And then we're going to jam the bill to the consumer because that's how our, that's how the policy, states, when we all sign for our insurance policies. We are in active negotiations with one of the major, I'm not allowed to say in public, but one of the major insurance carriers in the area to become in network. And I will tell you that if we become in network with this one, it would cover a majority of your residents. And then there wouldn't be any more back and forth.
So from that, let me just curious that you say that is employees of University of Georgia in network or out of network?
I don't know what they have for health insurance. That's just.
Okay, state health. Like retired teachers, they're all under state health.
Do you know who the carrier is?
Well, it could be, United Healthcare or,
I would have to
Yeah.
look into that.
so they're all different.
They are.
Pay,
Yes.
all right.
And it even varies, and I hate to even say, it even varies from plan to plan. So on our level, we have, personally, Priority gives us Cigna Healthcare. We also had Cigna last year, but we had Cigna through WellNet. And what WellNet covered versus what straight Cigna covers, same insurance card, same processing, is different.
What's the, just in general, what's the percentage as far as self-pay versus somebody that has some kind of insurance? I mean, just plain old 100% self-pay.
I would say, once again, I want to get exact numbers, which I can get, but I would say between 8 and 10% of our calls are listed as truly self-pay, and that we never gather any insurance information on
Okay.
whatsoever.
That brings up an interesting point I was going to ask, but now that you mentioned about the percentage of self-pay, what, do y'all keep up with total what we call non-residents versus residents on calls?
For, not saying that we couldn't, but we don't. So when we respond to a residence here in Oconee or a traffic accident in Oconee, we do put in the address into their PCR, or their run sheet. So wherever it happened gets tagged to that. And then even if their address is outside of it, it doesn't necessarily tag it as a town resident. Sorry, not a town resident. I'm from the Northeast. I apologize, as a county resident. So, I'm not saying that we couldn't track that, because we actually do have that ability to map that in our system. It's just something that we don't map at this time.
I'm just curious. I mean, if we're subsidizing, I mean, I'm just curious as what percentage of your calls are for people who are traveling through our community instead of being citizens of this community. I'm just curious about that. Um, that was all I had. The only question I have, Mr. Chairman, perhaps they could provide us with copies of your PowerPoint presentation.
I have them right over
Well, I
there.
mean, you can email them. I mean,
Okay.
you know,
I did make paper copies because I know some people are that way, you know.
either-
I'm not, but
okay, either way.
okay.
All right,
I
thank
got
you.
one more. If the pickup is deceased, is the bill the same?
So that is, once again, I always hate to use the word, it depends. You know, if the person is deceased and we go there and we say they are not viable, there is a small charge that we do to recoup it. Now, if personally, I will tell you a quick personal story, not to go too in depth. My son was 17 when he was killed in an accident in upstate New York. When we got a $925 bill from the ambulance service up there, volunteer. So, and now I've worked in the ambulance industry almost my whole life took a little detour, went to really corporate America for a while. I'm a very level-headed person most of the time, and I lost my mind. I will say that we do that to recoup what we consider administrative charges for that ambulance. And that's because it's a national company and we have national policies that we have to follow in order to make sure that we stay within the rules and regulations of Medicare and Medicaid. A lot of the things we have to do, even if we're billing it out, is because of those. If any of those families get that bill and you cannot pay it, because a lot of times insurance will pay that. They will pay the small fee and we'll just write off the rest. If they can't, I truly encourage them to reach out to my office and, talk to me personally about that. Because that is the smaller charge. Now, we come in and we work a cardiac arrest. So, and then at the end of that cardiac arrest, we determine that the person is not going to survive. Then they will get a bill that's not a transport bill, but they will get a bill for the services because we basically brought the emergency room to the patient. We've given them multiple medications. We put them on the monitor. We may have shocked their heart several times. And that does issue a bill out. Once again, most of the time the insurances will pay for that.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm talking about the call. You're not even running code. They're doing a crime scene thing or whatever it might be. There's not a lot of equipment being used. Stretcher call, wherever, take those bodies. So what I'm asking is that fee will be lower.
Yes. So our Our non-emergent fee, our administrative fee is $253. So that's generally what's billed, but we can bill up to $750. Depending on what level of services. So if it is exactly, I walk through the door, as a paramedic, I walk through the door and the person is obviously deceased. I don't have to do anything else other than look at the person and go, they're deceased. I'm sorry for your loss. And do some paperwork, because we still have to do paperwork. Then it's the $253 fee. If they were to put them on the cardiac monitor and they document that, 253. And that's what it should be. Do I say our billing department gets it right all the time? I would be remiss in lying to you if I said that they did. But anytime that there is ever a question on it and they're not getting anywhere with our billing department, I am very encouraged for them to contact my office and they will hear back from me.
Where's your office?
So my office is actually, I'm in Conyers.
Okay.
So I'm up at 1060 Culpeper Drive in
I'm
Conyers.
not gonna show up. I'm just curious.
That's all right. You got to get through my my great office manager, Allison, first. So
Question for you. You said that some folks that when the ambulance shows up, you could be in network or out of network.
Mhm.
When you call 911 in Oconee County, the only people that respond is national.
yes.
So I'm just curious is what kind of excuses do insurance companies get when the only company we can call is national? How could they possibly be out of network?
I wish I could speak on behalf of the insurance companies, and I'll keep my my personal opinions at bay. This is a relatively new thing that I've seen over the past 5 years, where so on a federal level, the federal government created the No Surprise Act. It focused on air ambulances. People were getting out of network air ambulance bills for $30,000-$40,000, and we're not in the air ambulance business, so we don't set those. And they were going after people. They were really aggressively going after people to the point that the federal government had to step in. Ground ambulances were let out of that bill, so ground ambulances do not apply to that federal law. So insurance companies, in their goal and their quest to satisfy their shareholders, have determined that it's easier to deny bills than it is to pay them. They rather and I see this with hospital bills and such, that they rather deny certain services, thinking that it was not necessarily an emergency, even though 911 was called. They'll look at, 911 was called, and they'll look at a call and they'll read the narrative, and it was, nausea and vomiting, right? But to you, that was an emergency. To the insurance company, they go, well, why didn't they just go to urgent care? We would have only had to pay $100 for that instead of, the thousands of dollars. Those are some of my personal theories, and that's really, what it is. But to me, any call that comes in is an emergency. And as long as we have your insurance information, we will dig in and we will bill the insurance company, even if they're not a network. I will tell you that Blue Cross Blue Shield, all of their brands, tends to not necessarily deny claims, but will process a claim and then mail the check to the person that they actually had the service. So if, once again, if you called for, whatever medical complaint and you had Blue Cross Blue Shield and we submit the claim, they would actually mail you a check for the services in your name. What we find, not all the time, I find that about 80% of people are honest and mail the check to us. What happens sometimes is people then cash the check because they don't have any instructions with it, and then get the bill from us and they're like, oh, wait. And they look at their, EOB. Blue Cross paid for it. Blue Cross gave you a check to pay for us. And then, and that sometimes gets lost in translation. We also will take whatever is allowable under the insurance. So if, for example, I have a $3,000 deductible for my family plan, if I called an ambulance, well, not this year, last year, if I called an ambulance, I would have been on the hook for some of that bill because I didn't meet my deductible. And those are some of the other things we run across is they, when they do call 911, because it is healthcare, it's the same as going to the emergency room. I don't know if, with the education of it needs, it's part of that deductible that you would pay for any other services, depending on within your policy. And some of those policies get really complicated and such.
I appreciate the fact that y'all do all that. It just makes no sense that anybody in Oconee County would be out of network if they called 911 and got national SMS. I guess there's lots of reasons they don't, that kind of stuff. They just.
We fight, I can tell you that.
Service 3.
Yeah, and that's one of our positions, as an ambulance service, is that we are actively lobbying our local, representatives and senators here at the state level. Unfortunately, the bill fell through this year, but we are pushing, a bill through the state, and if we actually get it in the next session, I'll be coming to all our local elected officials for support. And it would actually allow for Georgia would create a law that would force these insurance companies to put their people in network and force them to actually pay the bill directly to the ambulance service provider. So the people don't have to, the residents and the people that are getting the bills don't have to, really don't even have to see a bill from us. Unless they're not insured, then they would still. But I agree with you. It's a insurance game is, unfortunately, I've been in administration for 12 years out of my, 23, and this insurance game has been, one of those games that we have to continuously play, and it gets worse every year from a business perspective.
I'm very sorry you lost your son.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, I don't, it was, it was several years ago now, but I could tell you that, from that perspective, it also changed a lot of my outlook when we say that, when I say I'm a people first person, I really mean it. Yes, at the end of the day, like I said, I don't hide anything. I'm very transparent. National, we're in business to make money at the end of the day, just as the trash company does. I know it's a bad example, but, even as the hospital, they may be not-for-profit status, but at the end of the day, they have to make money on top of their operating expenses in order to do that. And that's what we are. We're not, Priority as a whole. We are looking to be a good community steward and not necessarily, we're not trying to be greedy. And I really do empathize with every single resident that gets those bills, because I could tell you that is shocking, especially those that get them when their loved ones are deceased. I 100% can empathize with that.
As far as the financial metrics from priority to national, you're hitting them as far as company within your company.
Yes, sir. We are, we're exceeding them. I'm choosing my words carefully,
Yeah,
because
understood.
being a privately held company, if we were publicly traded, I could tell you all day, but being privately held, I have to keep that. But we are at national exceeding our expectations this year. A lot of it is coming from our interfacility side. So we also run an interfacility division on top of 911. We've increased business on that side. So that's moving the patients from the hospital back to the homes.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate the trust that you guys have given National to continue our service. Please, I'll give my card out. If anybody ever has any questions, please feel free to reach out.
We do have need of an executive session to discuss land, personnel, and litigation.
Make a motion, we go into executive session, discuss land, personnel, and litigation.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Absolutely. That's okay. So, full transparency, I live in, full time, when I'm here Monday through Friday. I live in Oconee. But on the weekends, my actual home is in Savannah.
Oh, okay. So we try to go to bid on sun on weekends. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us. And, I know that this was the yearly, the quarter's coming up,
Yeah, no problem.
so I should have it, our numbers have been coming a lot better, so I should have it sooner than 20 days.
Very good. Need a motion to go back in regular session?
Second.
Mr. Saxon,
Second.
we are adjourned.